My husband of 12 years had been dead for 3 months. Except he just walked into our kitchen holding groceries. Let me take you back to how this all started. David and I had what everyone called the perfect marriage. High school sweethearts, married at 22, built our dream life together in suburban Minneapolis. He was a software engineer, I taught 3rd grade. We had our little routines: Sunday morning pancakes, Friday night movies, annual trips to his parents' cabin in Wisconsin. Everyone said we were couple goals. David was the guy who brought me coffee in bed every morning, who remembered every anniversary, who still held my hand during movies. After 12 years, we were still that couple, making our single friends simultaneously jealous and nauseous. But looking back now, there were signs. Tiny things that my trusting brain explained away. Like how David always showered immediately when he got home from work. Every single day. He said it helped him transition from work mode to home mode. Sweet, right? Or how he'd gotten really into hiking alone on weekends. He'd leave Saturday mornings with his backpack and return Sunday evenings, exhausted but happy. He said it cleared his head. I respected his need for alone time. The phone calls that he'd step outside to take. Work stuff, he'd say with an apologetic smile. You know how boring tech talk is. Then came that terrible Tuesday in March. David was supposed to be at a 3-day conference in Chicago. He'd kissed me goodbye Monday morning, told me he loved me, promised to bring back that deep dish pizza I loved. I was grading papers when the call came. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Is this Sarah Mitchell? The voice was shaky, female. Yes? Ma'am, I'm calling from Regents Hospital. Your husband David Mitchell was in a car accident. The world stopped. The red pen fell from my hand. He was driving on Highway 35 when a semi ran a red light. Ma'am. I'm so sorry. He didn't survive the impact. I collapsed. Right there on our kitchen floor, surrounded by my students' math worksheets, I fell apart completely. The funeral was a blur. Hundreds of people, flowers everywhere, casseroles filling our fridge. David's co-workers from TechFlow Solutions spoke about what a dedicated employee he was. His college buddies shared hiking stories. His mother sobbed into my shoulder. For 3 months, I lived in a fog. I took leave from teaching. I barely ate. I sat in his chair, wearing his sweaters, sleeping on his pillow. The grief counselor said this was normal. I was slowly, painfully learning to exist without him. That's when he walked into our kitchen. I was making tea, chamomile, the kind David always said smelled like sadness, when I heard the front door open. Keys jingling. Footsteps. My heart stopped. Grief hallucinations, maybe? The counselor had mentioned those. But then David rounded the corner, Whole Foods bags in his hands, very much alive and looking confused. Sarah? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? I dropped the mug. It shattered on the tile floor. You're dead. My voice came out as a whisper. David, you're dead. I buried you. His face went white. The grocery bags hit the floor. What are you talking about? I'd been at the cabin. You knew I was taking some time to work on the novel. We discussed this. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. This wasn't possible. No. I backed against the counter. No, the hospital called. The accident. The funeral. Your mother crying. Your coworkers. Everyone was there. David's expression changed. The confusion melted into something else. Something that looked almost like guilt. Sarah, sit down. Please. But I couldn't sit. I couldn't think. I couldn't understand how my dead husband was standing in our kitchen looking very much alive and increasingly uncomfortable. The man who died, I whispered. If it wasn't you, who was it? That's when David's face crumbled completely. His name was Marcus Webb. He was. Sarah, I need to tell you something. and you're going to hate me. The truth came out in pieces, each one more devastating than the last. David had been living a double life for 2 years. Marcus Webb wasn't just some random accident victim. He was David's other identity. Complete with social security number, driver's license, job history. I created him when I started the affair, David said, his voice barely audible. I needed a way to disappear for weekends, to have a separate bank account, a different life. Marcus had an apartment in Chicago. A job at a marketing firm. A whole existence. The hiking trips. The work conferences. The evening phone calls. All lies. Who is she? I asked, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Her name is Jennifer. She works at the marketing firm where Marcus worked. She thought, her boyfriend Marcus just died in a car crash. This couldn't be real. This was insane. My husband had faked his own death by accident because his fake identity died instead. Wait. Something clicked. If Marcus died, but you're David, then how did they identify the body as you? David's silence was deafening. David. How did they know to call me? Because Marcus Webb's emergency contact was listed as Sarah Mitchell. His wife. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not only had David created an entire fake identity to cheat on me, he'd married this other woman using that identity. I wasn't just betrayed. I was unknowingly a bigamist. I have been planning Marcus's funeral while you've been playing house with your second wife. David tried to reach for me, but I jerked away. Sarah, please. It got so complicated. When Marcus died, I didn't know how to tell you he wasn't me without explaining everything else. I thought maybe I could just disappear, start over. Start over? I screamed. I grieved you. I planned your funeral. I spoke at your memorial service about how much I loved you while you were alive, hiding, letting me suffer. But here's the thing about rock bottom, it gives you something solid to push off from. The next morning, I called my brother-in-law Jake, who's a private investigator. Within 48 hours, I had Marcus Webb's Chicago address, Jennifer's full name, copies of the fraudulent marriage certificate, bank statements showing David had been funneling our money into Marcus's accounts. I also discovered something else. Something even David didn't know yet. Jennifer Webb was pregnant. I drove to Chicago that Friday. Jennifer answered the door of Marcus's apartment, her apartment now, wearing a loose sweater that couldn't quite hide her growing belly. Can I help you? She asked. Hi. I'm Sarah Mitchell. David Mitchell's wife. I believe you knew him as Marcus Webb. Her face went through the same shocked confusion mine had. I spent 3 hours with Jennifer. She was 28, sweet, completely innocent in all this. She genuinely loved Marcus. She was 4 months pregnant and had been planning to surprise him with the news when he got back from his business trip, the business trip that killed him. We cried together. We raged together. And then we planned together. David returned home Sunday evening to find both his wives sitting at our kitchen table. Ladies, I said sweetly, meet your husband. The conversation that followed was epic. Jennifer confronted him about the lies, the fake identity, the stolen life. I confronted him about the financial fraud, the emotional abuse, the 3 months of unnecessary grief. But the real justice came later. See, Marcus Webb had debts. Credit cards, a car loan, rent on that Chicago apartment. And since David had been making those payments from our joint account, technically stealing marital assets to fund his fake identity, I was able to claim financial fraud. Jennifer filed for fraud too, since their marriage wasn't legal anyway. The IRS got involved when they discovered David had been filing taxes under 2 different social security numbers. David lost his job at TechFlow when they discovered he'd been using company resources to maintain his Marcus Webb identity. Within 6 months, David went from having 2 wives and 2 lives to having no wife, no money, no job, and a criminal record. Jennifer and I? We became friends. Real friends. She moved back to Minneapolis, and I helped her through the pregnancy. Little Marcus, she named him after the father she thought she'd lost, was born healthy and perfect. I returned to teaching and started seeing a therapist who specialized in complex trauma. I learned that what David did to me has